you to come on in and take a seat. My privilege today to introduce our guest speaker. First, I have just one announcement, just a reminder to you of Opportunity Quest. Those of you who are still trying to figure out what this is, if you did not go to the meeting last night, it's an opportunity for up to $1,000 in prizes for your business entry in the competition. And $100, this is automatic. If you enter the competition with legitimate entry, it's 100 points in this class of extra credit. So this is a great opportunity to apply some of the things you've been learning. If you go to facebook.com/snowcollegebusiness or snow.edu/business, either one of those, and you'll be able to get this Opportunity Quest information packet that gives you all the details on how to enter that. So today's guest presenter, who has graciously agreed to come and visit our campus to teach, inspire, and share his experience, is Mr. George Hansen. He's the founder and chief technology officer of Conductive Composites Company. He graduated from BYU with a degree in chemical engineering, went to work for IBM, engineer for the world's first gigabyte disk drives, and after a few years there, recognized some other opportunities. He left the private sector, began his entrepreneurial venture, and 15 years now have been spent developing non-metallic electromagnetic management materials for the military, government, industrial applications, and so forth. This isn't his eulogy, but there's a lot of good things to say here. I'm just going to jump right to the best of them. He holds about a dozen patents. Now I know like 20, way more than a dozen. You counted them. His paper for us, we weren't quite sure. He lost count. And then also should mention that he won the Utah Innovator of the Year Award in 2010. He's also got something some of you may not have heard of, but there's something called a Small Business Innovation Research Program, or SBIR program. Very difficult to earn those awards. He's earned 6 Phase 1 awards, 6 Phase 2 awards. They're kind of a big deal. He was number 3 out of 477 entries nationwide on his 2007 proposal. He says that he finds equal pleasure in inventing things and inspiring people. So we're hoping that he'll do the latter today, and we're certain he will. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, is that too loud? You got to turn it down if it's too loud, because I don't know how to operate this. I barely know how to operate a cell phone, which I haven't the faintest where I put it. So if it goes off, I'll ignore it. You need to look for the clues where they are. Clue. You want an A? Enter the contest. I had a teacher at BYU, actually, who taught a geology class, and he knew that most of the people were there because they needed 3 credits of Earth history. So for the test, he'd get up and say, like this for the final, he'd say, now, on question 3 here, if I needed to circle A, B, C, or D, you can do what you want, but I'd circle C. And he sort of went through the whole test like that. So it's good to have teachers that make life fun. Okay, how do I go forward? Right here. That's me. That's my contact information. I put this at the bottom. Oh, that's bad. Where's the pointer? Aha, right there. That's gratuitous. Actually, the one that I like to say is there's a thing called the R&D 100 Award. And they are worldwide, and they give 100 of them a year for the best new 100 ideas in technology and manufacturing, and we got one of those. That is a big deal. The award that he talks about in 2007 garnered the program manager for the Air Force who did it, the Department of Defense-wide program manager of the year for the product. I'll describe it later. It is cool. All right, here we go. Who knows what Eureka means? An idea? I found it. Okay? I discovered it. Running through the streets. I got it. I figured it out. Now, if you know the answer to this, next question, don't shout it out because I want to save it for the end, but at least raise your hand if you know the answer to this one. Epileza. You're supposed to pay 100% attention to the presentation, so no one can look this up on their phone. But I know many of you will, okay? Nobody knows what this means? I will guarantee you, as an entrepreneur, as a businessman, as a husband, as anything in life, until you understand the meaning of this word, you will fail. It's that important. So now I've got your attention. Okay? We'll go to entrepreneurship in a few minutes, but I want to talk about, I can read these here. Conductive composites, our technology, our history, and the history will then get into the entrepreneurship, okay? Problem. Who's got a cell phone? Don't be embarrassed. Who doesn't have a cell phone? Everybody's got cell phones, okay? Or almost everybody. They are ubiquitous. Here is a picture of the papal election in 2005. You see maybe one or two cell phones in that crowd. Here's a picture of the papal election in 2013. What happened? If you think data is exploding now, I went to a presentation with IM Flash Micron. We are like 3 orders of magnitude away from where we're going to be in 20 or 30 years. By the way, and that's still about 6 orders of magnitude behind the human mind. But the fact of the matter is we're going in terabytes really fast. And we've got to figure out how to manage it. We've got to figure out how to... we live in this electromagnetic sea. It's a soup. Okay? And it's just getting thicker and thicker and thicker and thicker and thicker. Okay? So what do we do as a company? We're trying to figure out, there's two emerging and merging socioeconomic forces that are conflicting. Force number one. Oops, wrong button. Force number one. Lightweight next generation materials. Graduate, 1968. One word, son. Plastics. Anybody see that movie? Anybody even know it? Okay. Really famous line from it. One word, son. Plastics. Huh?
It's a Wonderful Life.
Oh, was that from A Wonderful Life?
They say something like that in It's a Wonderful Life.
Oh, okay. But it's the same thing. It's like there's these new materials that are just coming on board, and lightweight, inexpensive. Let's go back here. I'll quit hitting that button. Next generation materials make manufacturing all sorts of things really, really, really cost effective, and you can make these wonderful computers. There's more computing power in that cell phone than there is in even the last generation space shuttle. I mean, it's just phenomenal. Let's go back here. I'll quit hitting that. Second one, wireless and electromagnetic environments. It used, gosh, dang it. Stay there. You know, I'm going to use this one down here. That's going away. Everything is going wireless. Who's been in Office Depot lately? Can you buy a wired mouse? Can you buy a wired keyboard? Can you buy a cabled printer? If you can, they're the rare part now, and in a couple of years, you won't be able to buy them. And when the wires go away, and even the wires have a signal enough, but when you go to broadcast, well, the FCC very much says legally, the airwaves are open and free. and it's illegal to stop them, and you don't want to stop them. But standoff distances for being able to detect wireless signals is about 200 yards. And you get closer to 200 yards, you can start to pick up wireless pretty good. And if you think that the encryption's good, then you're really crazy. Go watch the Imitation Game. The only thing worse, there's only two kind of cell phone owners. Cell phone and wireless are different, by the way, but I'll just use as an analogy. There's maybe only two kind of wireless users in your home. Those that know they've been driven by, and those that don't know they've been driven by, because you've been hacked. And we get hacked every day. There's two ways to hack. One is through the wire, cybersecurity. Not much I can do about that. That's a brain game that's way above me. But if you can just deny the signal, stop it. Then all of a sudden you've done a couple of things, and I'll get into those in a bit here. So what we do as a company, okay, right? One. There we are. I'll tell you how we came up with this during the why I think people think I'm an entrepreneur. We make a nickel-coated carbon fiber. They make the carbon fiber in Salt Lake in this particular case. I'll pass this around. This has, well, I'll ask for a guess here. You can't see that much here, but see that little yarn there? How many fibers are in that yarn? 12,000. There's 12,000, okay? The fibers are 7 microns in diameter, and in this case, every one of those fibers has a coating around it, which I'll show you later, which is about 80 nanometers thick. So we're talking about making really, this is nanotechnology, okay? We also use the same process to coat broad goods, cloth, stuff. This is the paper. This will stop your cell phone. Those two basic materials then get integrated into all sorts of cool things. The one up there at the bottom, see the satellite dish? That's this. This is the one that won Program of the Year for the DoD. Not because, dish number one is sitting on my desk, but it went downstream to another company who makes them. Thousands of them fielded in the field. They basically make it so instead of a soldier having to take a big dish that's aluminum and carry it around on his back, and it acts as a great walk, and it drops and it gets bent, and it makes a great target. Put this in your backpack. So we make antennas, satellite dishes. We don't. The material goes downstream to them. We're on a couple of spacecraft. Have been for about 20 years. We make lightweight cables. Now on this one, this is our commercial. We sell about 1 million feet a month of this cable, of not this cable, of the wire that goes into this cable. You can see the fiber there. It's a defibrillator lead. It goes on to a patient when he's in triage. So basically, if he starts to go under, they can defib him right away. But this film is so thin that it's X-ray translucent, so the X-ray can see through it. So basically, they don't see the cord on the X-ray. And so that's why it's the preferred triage defib cable. So we ship about 1 million feet a month of that stuff out of our factory at Emory County. Conduits, lightweight tubing, enclosures. This is an injection molded enclosure. This will stop an EMP. And it's just dollars, and it's plastic. And we can make them in all sorts of different sizes, as you can see. So basically, and one more here, construction materials, wallpapers and screens. What we're trying to say is, fine electromagnetic soup, come at us. We're going to stop you. That's where the thing, now that's not where it started. I didn't have this idea like 25 years ago. I'm going to stop all the electromagnetic waves that aren't here yet. We had no idea where this would go. We just stuck with it. Here's some cases, pictures, and there's that reflector. There's this Defense Challenge Acquisition Program Manager of the Year Award 2012 for the whole Department of Defense. So a bit of history here. BS Chemical Engineering, 1979, BYU. I was a middle-of-the-road student. I couldn't even get an interview with Exxon, and if I wanted to. I didn't want to. But I got an interview with IBM, material science, making chips, making discs, making heads, making optics. Ended up getting 7 offers from them, got the 3rd highest offer in my class. This is cool. I'm on a ride. Well, I ended up being the head disk engineer. That gigabyte disk drive you talked about, that thing was 4 feet wide, 2 feet deep, and 6 feet high. And by dark, we got a gigabyte in it. We got to about 100 gig in that box, and there's that size of a box, and decided magnetic recording at that point had no future. It was all going to be optical. Then they figured out how to do layered. They had to do magnetic. They had all the things I haven't the faintest because I left the industry, but they're on terabytes on a thumbnail now. It's just amazing where technology goes when you want it to. These are the pictures that happened. Okay, if I get emotional, that's fine because I'm an entrepreneur. This was my aha moment. When I was at IBM and Storage Tech, I knew thin film deposition, I knew electron optics, I knew infrared optics, I knew chemical analysis, I knew how to make small thin film structures. I uncovered a problem that cost the corporation $500 million. They started to crucify the messenger. But what I'm saying is, I got that world really well, okay? I didn't like corporate America so much, but I was okay with it. But when I saw, remember I'm a thin film engineer, when I saw that somebody had put a thin film, and I will use this now, a thin film, less than 100 nanometers, all the way around the fiber, conforming to the defects in the fiber, uniform across every fiber, across 12,000 of them, I said, I'm quitting my job. I don't know when, I don't know how, but this is so amazingly different than anything I've ever seen that it took me about 2 years, okay? But here's what happened. Principle number 1 here, that a sound you have to have, you're going to be an entrepreneur, you'll go, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, I'm going to invent something. You might stumble on the pet rock. And by the next one I'm going to describe, you can have it if you want type thing. 2 Sundays ago, I took our blue potatoes out of the garden, and I was making potato chips. And I thought, just a minute, if I take the potato and I cut it longwise in the shape of a heart and then make the potato chips, I'll have purple heart potato chips and sell them to the veterans. I mean, that's where a lot of ideas come from, is just these aha moments, okay? Well, you saw mine, right? But you have to understand your differentiators. What is it that really makes it work? In this case, previous nickel-coated fibers were very, very rough, very uneven. We knew that we could coat them very, very thin, very, very smooth. In this case, previous papers like you see there, the coating was way uneven, poor conductivity. We made it so you could put that coating everywhere. And so basically, that's what we knew the process could do. So those are we understand the differentiators. Now, this next one is understand the differentiators, but have the ability to recognize it. And that takes one thing, an education. The reason I keep this picture, and it's a bad picture, in my jewelry box, because I have these recurring dream zones every 10 years that, no, I didn't get my degree. So I go to the jewelry box and open it up, and there's Dr. Smoot giving me my degree, and I go, okay, I got my degree. I cannot underestimate the importance of education, even if it's not formal, even if it's not degreed, if you will. Like for instance, when I was taking a class in BYU, and we were solving a problem in advanced analytical geometry and calculus. It had 26 variables, and we have slide rules. Didn't have calculators yet, and somebody looked up and says, "Dr. Gardner, how come we're trying to solve this?" They do it with 250,000 variables now, but it goes, "Why are we trying to solve this problem that we'll never use?" And about halfway through the class, halfway through the problem, he put his chalk down and said, "Because if you want to learn how to do an equation like this, go to a math trade school. If you want to learn how to weld, go to a weld trade school." And he was not knocking the trade schools, but he was saying, if you want to learn a specific thing, you go to learn that. But you go to a university to learn, because the half-life of an engineer is 5 years. Think about it. You're either going to be back on the farm because your mom and dad died, or you're going to be in management, or you're going to go into small business because you didn't like, or you're going to be an entrepreneur. But the half-life of an engineer is 5 years. So it says you better learn to learn. Within 5 years after, they didn't have any electron optics when I was in college, and within 5 years after I got out of college, I knew all these things that we were talking about because I had to go learn them. So this continual quest to learn something is really important. And it all starts with the ability to learn. And that's what a university does for you. It doesn't teach you math, it teaches you to learn math or physics or English or whatever. Okay? Now you need, this is a good story. I will make it through it. You need the support to do something about it. So there's a beautiful wife, and there I am looking as silly as can be, okay? Because she's really pretty and I'm really silly. The reason I say that is because your support system can sometimes look at you just like this. Now look at my face. I'm just sitting there going along steady, happy as can be. 5 minutes later, it's a good set of pictures. You need to take and have the support. And you need support that comes from something like that. I'll get here, I'm sorry. So I had this aha moment. I didn't know what to do about it. I was a key employee at a Fortune 500 company. I had a great job. I had a mortgage, truck payment, and 3 kids at the time and a beautiful wife. And I went in on a Friday afternoon and said to my boss, "I'm out of here." I got about halfway home and said, that was a dumb thing to do, wasn't it, Georgie? Okay. Maybe you ought to turn around and apologize. What are you going to tell your wife when you get home? How are you going to make your house payment? You got 6 weeks on a credit card, buddy. All of that started formulating. But I didn't turn back, because I got home, walked in the door. "How you doing, honey?" "Fine. You're home early?" "Yeah." Give her a hug. Go back to this one. You know, she's like that when I walk in the door. Go over, hug her, and whisper in her ear, "I quit this afternoon." She stepped back and gave me that look. What do you think she said? A few comments. What do you think she said? "You did what?" No, she gave me that look. "What took you so long? Let's go." That's support. Really, she had the aha too. And she saw it in me, she saw this, "Let's go do this." "Okay, I'm done." "Good." Okay, through that one. That is really important, to have that. And I don't want to say it's unwavering. I mean, we argued through 10 mortgages. And but we're still good. Okay, got to know your motivation. You get a family, you fall in love, you better provide. Side note here, somebody told me, I'm this entrepreneur here, what's the world's most important calling? Fatherhood, motherhood. Somebody from the Governor's Office of Economic Development, who's a good friend, said, no, George, he's been a friend for 30 years. He goes, the most important calling in the world is employer. You enable fathers. Think about it. Okay. You get a family. The family grows up. Okay, what's your motivation? Well, here's the old hippie. A guy by the name of Phil Oakes. He wrote a song in 1964 at the top of the Vietnam War about how to dodge the draft. Very, very good song. Okay, and it was an anthem song of the Vietnam War, of the protest movement, to the level of Blowing in the Wind. I mean, it was him and Bob Dylan played together regularly. He made I missed that one. I'll be the first to go. If you ever have a war without blood and gore, I'll be the first to go. Do you think that's possible? Is it? Einstein says that if, no matter what we fight World War III with, we'll fight World War IV with sticks and stones. But is it possible to have a war without blood and gore? Remember, I got 3 kids who could have got drafted into Iraq had it been a terrible war. So you go, yeah, you can do that. It's coming soon to a theater near you. All the things you see, they all exist. We just don't know it yet. And indeed, I thought, just a minute, if I can do something that makes it so we don't have to kill people, that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. And so I go, okay, I'll try that. Okay. And along the way, we had a few other successes, but that's what I wanted. That was my other motivation was, I know these materials are good for something electromagnetic, and I know there's all sorts of electromagnetic stuff going on out there. Let's see if we can't marry it. And we got married. Another precept then. Decide what you want to be when you grow up. Insurance companies say you grow up at 26. That's what the actuarial say because then the insurance goes down. Decide what you want to be when you grow up. Never, ever grow up. Seems like a weird statement. You know, you're supposed to be old and mature and cut your hair once in a while. This is for cancer, by the way. Okay. If you grow up and you arrive, if you will, then all of a sudden you will not have an ability to move. Where there is no gradient, there is no motion. We'll talk about that later. Okay? What you have to do is say, okay, I'm where I think I was going to be 3 years ago. I'm going to where I want to be 2 years from now. But where am I going to be in 5 years? And then I get a little idea, where am I going to be in 10 years? And you just keep that timeline moving. And right now, even though our company is working on electromagnetic stuff, my research has to do with some really weird interfacial mechanical properties of carbon fibers, carbon nanofibers, and carbon nanotubes. And that's what my basic research is. Basic research is in not just electromagnetics of radio frequency, but electromagnetics of gamma rays and neutrons and lasers and high energy electrons. And how do you stop all of those things? And how do you manage those types of things? And how do you get the materials to do that? Believe in yourself. So this is my 6-year-old granddaughter. Cute. She's too young for all of you, okay? But she's cute, cute, cute. So we're talking to a really famous sculptor by the name of Stan Watts. Stan Watts did the horses in front of the Nauvoo Temple. He did the firemen raising the flag over the rubble. You may recognize his work. But we went down to visit his studio, and she's taking art classes. So we went to introduce him. She looks up to Mr. Watts and says, "Hi, Mr. Watts. I'm a famous artist, too. It's just that nobody knows it yet." And that's very true. It's in you to get out. Okay? You need to understand the worth of human capital. What do I mean by human capital? Anybody? What's human capital? It's not the slave trade. Some corporations think it is. Not just your intellectual value, your value as a human being. It's your value, your ability to do what you do to the extent that you can do it in the position that you're in. And your ability to rise to your own level of competency or incompetency, if you believe in the Peter Principle, and your ability to be of worth. Remember how I said the most important calling is an employer? Because you need to understand if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you're not going to do things yourself. We'll get to another slide here about that. Actually, it's this slide, okay? Share the glory. Take the blame. Surround yourself not with good people. Surround yourself with people that are better than you. And not just in there, like, I need an MBA for my business, so I'll hire an MBA here. Like, I think I'm honest, but this guy's probably actually more honest than me. I'm going to let him watch my checkbook. Okay? You basically have to surround yourself with people better than you, because if you do that and you let them do their job, they will protect you, they will honor you, and you will have their friendship and relationship forever, and that's how things grow well. That's human capital. Payroll is the largest piece of expenditure you'll ever make, and the most important. I'm working with a venture capitalist now out in California on doing some stuff, but he says, you know, when I finally retire, the first book I'm going to write about the business experience is, you know, how do you start the small business? How do you get through this whole tube and get out the other end? And I'm going to name the book Making Payroll. That's your first obligation. Taxes second, vendors third. Who's last? You. Okay, we're going to go to some laws of physics here. We're going to get really technical. Talk about effort and persistence. This is a true law of physics. If you hit the pool ball hard enough, it's bound to go in. By definition. You just have to figure out how to keep it hitting and keep it going and how to put that momentum into it continually. But if you hit the ball hard enough, it will go in. Better expect opposition. Why? Because for every action, there's equal and opposite reaction. Otherwise said, where there is no gradient, where there is no force against you, there is no motion. In essence, you have grown up. You've got to keep a gradient going, even if you have to make that gradient yourself and figure out where's the next hill I need to get over so I can climb it. That's how you keep moving. My son just says, nope, let's move the chains. Sometimes I say, nope, let's move ball fields. But basically, you've got to keep moving, okay? There must be the opposition in all things. They all say the same thing. You've got to have a force. Sometimes it's your wife, and she's a good one, okay? Sometimes it's the mortgage, and that's a really good one. But you've got to have a force driving you, okay? Welcome competition. I'm going to go back on this for a second and tell you about a force that drives you. So we talked about, I want to say, how can I be Walter Mitty and actually do something that helps the warfighter and doesn't kill people. You know, that's a pretty... So I'm sitting in the Pentagon with a mid-level official. He was the guy in charge of all the satellite dish program. And so I said, Paul, we're eating lunch. Thank you for believing in us. He looked up and goes, what? Thank you for believing in us and funding us. He goes, no. We need to thank you. I go, why? We delivered on the contract and, you know, we did the job. But he goes, no, we need to thank you. I go, okay. He says, for doing the king's work and saving lives. I go, whee! Score. You cannot buy satisfaction like that. You can't even earn it sometimes. Sometimes it just comes as a gift. Welcome competition. It's coming. Imitation is the greatest form of flattery. Hope you get it. Okay, law of thermodynamics. First law. You can never get more out of a system than you put into it. You've heard that before, right? No such thing as a free lunch. All these things that you get more energy out than you put in, they're bogus. The energy came from somewhere, okay? You have to figure out, with respect to this law, as you progress early in life, are you transferring value? Or are you borrowing value? Or are you creating value? Okay? I mean, for instance, energy, we're living on borrowed time. We all know it. Okay? We're borrowing value. Real estate guy, usually transferring value. Okay? Building value. God gave us 92 Legos. What are they? They're the elements, the natural elements. Learn to use them. Learn to put them together. Learn what they make. Learn what they do, because that's what builds value. That's the basic. Actually, no, they actually say that physics and math are the two basic ones, and I agree with them. But basically, you learn to create value. Okay? Second law, not only can you not get out what you get in, you can't even break even. There's a thing called entropy. There's a thing called randomness. There's a thing called your bedroom. There's a thing called the kitchen. And basically, things go to disorder naturally. That is what the law of entropy is. Okay? Randomness. The only thing that makes you go back to whole, to unity in a system, is a thing called the work function. And indeed, that is the work that brings the value to the system. Because you've got to work to make things go. Okay? And it's that work putting in, and this is classical thermodynamics as well as just life. You put the work back in. Because if you don't, you have to understand, under the law of entropy, there is no such thing as a 50-50 deal, or a 60-40 deal, or a 90-10 deal. There is no such thing as a deal between parties that adds to 100%. Because of the law of entropy. You have to give, if you got a 50-50 deal, you have to know that just to get to your 50, you've got to be willing to give 55. And then hope that you're at 50 when you get there. You've got to be willing to make sure that the other party understands that also. That basically, things will never add up to 100. And I think we all understand that every time we try and finally do something we plan, we go, oh crap, we're 2 weeks late and $10 short. Where did it all go and what did it all do? It's called entropy. Learn to deal with it, learn to plan for it, and learn to do the work to make up for it, because that's where the success comes. Dare to dream. This is a good one. One of the best dreams ever. And I've had a few dreams and written them down, and one of them became 3 SBIRs. Okay? Dare to dream. Einstein was a teenager, and he was 14 in this picture. When he was 16, what do you think he dreamed? Pretty girl next door, can I play the violin better? all the things that somebody at 16 would dream. Does anybody know what he dreamed when he was 16 years old? He dreamed that light actually is riding a wave. He had that thought experiment when he was 16. Dare to dream. Took him 11 years. He's a patent clerk for 2 of that, but finally in 1905 he wrote 5 papers. And they're phenomenally groundbreaking papers in what they do, including the law of special relativity. 26 years old. All started with a 16-year-old dream. Second one, respect. The other half of that coin, respect age. Old folks have something to say. Sometimes they say it a little slow and quiet. Sometimes they say it a little crazy. But this guy had a lot to say. Started when he was 16. But when he was this age, against his better judgment and desire, but for knowing that it needed to be done, because he knew the German physicists really well. And he knew if we didn't, they would do an atomic bomb. And they were within months. He signed a letter to President Roosevelt that said, we need to do this. He wasn't part of the program. He didn't want to be part of the program. But he had the eyes of age to be listened to. So on a more personal thing, I do a lot of work in Washington once in a while. But my son, who's president of the company, was trying to get a hold of a fairly high-level official. I won't say who, but pretty high. And tries to call him, and he won't answer. And he knew him. They had talked before plenty, but he just wouldn't answer, right? So I said, well, here, I'll just call him. So I called him. Well, he happened to be in his office at the time. But oh, hi, George, how are you? Nathan looks at me and goes, how did you do that, Dad? And I took the opportunity to look back at him and say, I'm 60. There's a lot of truth to that. Besides the education that I talked about, the life's lessons and friends made and things learned just through the School of Hard Knocks are maybe even more important. That ethic and trust that you build with people is really, really important. Finally, and we're just about good here, nothing is over until you say it's over. Even if the bank says, you're out of money. Actually, I have time to tell you a story here. When you say it's over. Who fishes? You know the brand name Loomis? Good rod, isn't it? He actually is a pretty personal friend because we build antennas together out of his fishing rods, okay? But he tells the following story about, I'll skip forward to when he was working as the superintendent of a fishing rod plant called Lamiglass, made glass fishing rods. He had learned about this thing called graphite. And he went in and says, we can make a fishing rod out of graphite. And they're in Washington State. So he went up to Boeing and sat outside the gate. And anybody that came out in a shirt, white shirt, a black tie, he goes, hey, you know anything about graphite? That's about how he talks. And finally an engineer says, oh yeah, I do. So he talked to him. The engineer got his boss's permission to teach Gary how to make tubes. And he went back to Lamiglass and said, we're going to make graphite tubes. And Lamiglass says, no, we're not. We're Lamiglass. Glass. We're not going to make graphite tubes. So he went home one night and said, honey, we're going to sell everything. We're going to sell everything, get $250,000, set up the equipment to make this happen, and give ourselves a year, and we're going to make graphite rods. So he rented a little barn, and he's a machinist by trade, invented his own machines, and they got 9 months down the road. And his wife comes in the shop one afternoon and says, honey, sit down. I'm busy, hon. I'll be home later tonight. No, sit down. I need to talk to you. No, I'm busy. I'll be home. Look, Gary, You got a wife that absolutely loves you, 2 children that adore you, and $35.06 in the bank. I better sit down. They had no idea. They weren't going to say it's done. They didn't know how they were going to make it through tomorrow, but they knew that they would somehow. So the next morning, he gets a call from a Lama Glass customer. Says, I'm going to make a new catalog thing, and I want to have your graphite rods in my catalog this year, and the new one. And he goes, I can't this year. Next year, fine, but I can't do it. We just can't. No, we really need, we need it. He goes, no, I'm sorry, I can't do it. Next year. He didn't mention money about how much they needed or anything, but the next morning there was $50,000 in his bank account. Somebody figured it out for him. And with 3 days to spare, 2 months later, he made the first delivery of graphite fly rods to a man by the name of Jim Cabela. That's where it started. That's where the whole graphite rod thing started, was that relationship, that sale. And you can see where it's gone from there. But now this talk's over. Except for one thing. Who has the answer? This is probably the most important point. Now you can look it up if you want. You know what it means? Epileza. Eureka, Greek for I discovered it. Epileza, Greek for I sold it. You've got to sell. You've got to sell yourself. You've got to sell your ID. You've got to sell your talents. You've got to sell your abilities. You've got to sell your personality. You've got to sell your technology. That is probably the thing that underpins everything. You've got to sell yourself to the people who are your human capital. So there we go. Questions?
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming and sharing this insight with us. Those of you that have some of the items that we passed around, if you'll just leave those with Jamie. She's sitting by the back door. Thank you. We'll see you next week.